Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session about Academy Software Foundation. For those of you who are not familiar with Academy Software Foundation, we launched in 2018 in partnership between the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts and Sciences and the Linux Foundation as the home for open source software across, the motion picture and animation industries. So a couple of weeks ago at SIGGRAPH, we hosted a two-day event, which we call Open Source Days, where a lot of our projects shared updates and we talked about the foundation, and it was kind of a gathering for the community. And it was nice to see a lot of familiar faces. But for those who were not able to make it, Kimball Thurston, who's the chair of our Technical Advisory Council, is going to go through some of the highlights from those 2 days and the top level updates from our projects, including 4 new projects that we announced. So before I turn it over to Kimball, we want to share a quick demo reel that we put together that kind of highlights just how much open source is used across the motion picture industry. Great. One last thing before I turn it over to Kimball, for those who did miss Open Source Days, we do have videos available of all the talks up on our YouTube channel, which is Academy Software Foundation. And Kimball will share that link at the end, and we'll also drop it in the chat. But if you have any questions throughout the session, please drop them in the Whova chat, and we will read out some of them at the end. So now over to Kimball.
Great, thanks, Emily. I think it would just be good to give a quick little, I'll go into a little more detail about what Emily mentioned, and then I'll sort of go through updates in sort of blocks of sort of like 4 categories, if you will. First, related to the VFX reference platform, then some sort of proven proven technology, and then a little bit of section around open communication and de facto standards, and then some things that we're doing for building blocks for the future. So as Emily mentioned, ASWF was created in 2018, and we've been steadily growing ever since. And here's a little slide that sort of talks through the various events that we've had and how we've grown our membership over the years, which has grown into quite a strong organization. And as you saw in the little sizzle reel, here's a quick overview of all of our members. And these organizations definitely help us and keep the lights on, as it were. But it's really about enabling developers and enabling people to create software that helps everyone. And so to sort of point to that, and you'll see a number of these slides are from our open source days, so you'll see that logo up here occasionally. So it's not just the member companies that are contributing to the Academy Software Foundation. And during the last 2 years, we had 80 different organizations, and over half of them were new just in the past year, right? So it's not just about an exclusive club or anything like that. It's really meant to be for everyone. The other thing that we've done, one of the reasons the ASWF really came about is that we had some open source projects that were languishing and hadn't had releases done in a while. OpenEXR being I think the most critical one, along with OpenColor.io was starting to do the thing. And so we've been able to sort of turn that around, and this is just a view of the releases that we did in the past year. And so you can see that we've really revitalized the development track and accelerated the features and the bug fixes and all the good stuff. The other thing that we've been doing is syncing those along with the VFX reference platform, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. So how does the ASWF work? The ASWF, there's an advisory council, which I'm the current chair of, and then there's a governing board that helps us keep going, and then there's a whole committee of outreach people and really helps to spread the message, and we wouldn't be able to do half of what we do without people like Emily involved. But then all of our member projects are all sort of active members of this advisory council, and we're all trying to share one common integration platform, and sort of share as many resources as we can where appropriate. And so what are our projects? Our projects, I've mentioned a couple already. Here's the full list, and I unfortunately won't be able to cover all of them today. We don't have enough time, and we've actually grown enough that I don't have time to cover all of them, but I will go through a few, and especially the new ones that are worthy of mention. So sort of going back into what I was talking about with the VFX reference platform, the Academy Software Foundation houses 3 of the VFX reference platform libraries, OpenEXR, OpenVDB, and OpenColor.io. And it also has the Academy Software Foundation also has a CI working group. And so I'll go into this in a little bit more in a second. But what we have done with the CI working group is we've created a bunch of helper resources that we use every day, but should be available to everyone if they would be helpful to you. So we have things like the ASWF Docker project, which builds Docker containers that have all of the software pre-built. And so you can just download this and use this, or use this Docker container to build your own software if you need, or as a reference platform for your own projects. One other quick plug here. We were recently involved with the VES on working on a Linux task force to promote the use of Linux workstations in the movie industry and media and entertainment in general. And so that was published this at SIGGRAPH this year. And that's available at this address here, and has sort of recommendations for what will be the basis of the of workstations going forward. And we're going to start up a couple of other experience groups and things like that following that. And you can find out more information from that. And we will be updating those Docker containers based on these recommendations. So continuing to talk about some of the VFX reference platform projects, OpenEXR 3.2 is due to be released. The primary features that will be in that is moving the C++ API to use the new core library. And as a little bit of a teaser, this little eye chart you have on the lower part of the slide is a slide I received from Autodesk, from the Flame department, where they were testing the encode speeds of the new core library. And so you can see that we're getting some pretty good performance improvements. I don't have the decode speeds, which actually should be better, but I didn't have those handy. And so that should be coming out in September, in time for inclusion into the next year's VFX reference platform. OpenVDB, you probably have seen the announcements from NVIDIA about the release of Neural VDB, which is a machine learning compression technique for OpenVDB. But not to take anything away from some of the normal bug fixes and other features they've added, but I thought that was a noteworthy thing to call out, that sort of shows that these tools are continuing to advance and improve. And some of the compression that they're demonstrating is nearly 100x what a sort of standard VDB file was. And so that seemed like a noteworthy feature that's going to be coming in OpenVDB in the upcoming release. OpenColor.io has a number of things happening for 2.2 that'll be coming out for next year's VFX reference platform. There's some new configurations. There's updates for ACES profiles, additional transforms, and they've added a new metadata layer to be able to start to put metadata into EXR files that will carry some information. One of the things that they've added is the ability to package a config with some LUTs together into a single OCIO sort of compressed zip archive to allow you to package and carry these things around, which should be super handy. Moving on from that, I'll switch over to some sort of the production proven technology, and talk about Material X for just a moment. Material X has a number of things on the horizon. One is this chess set, which you've probably seen if you've been paying attention to these things, but it's a great demonstration of all the materials, or of sample material graphs that you can create, and that was published, and you'll have continued to see integration of Material X into USD, and that's continuing apace. And I know that there's a whole lot more to say about that at the moment, but certainly check into their project as you have time. One other thing that the Material X project and the OSL project are doing in sort of concert, which is another sort of real great benefit of the Academy of Software Foundation, is that we've enabled projects to sort of work together where it was harder for them to do so in the past. But one of the things that the two projects are doing together is defining a new set of standard BSDF closures for OSL that implement Material X nodes, and so that you can have composed Autodesk standard surface or other materials like that. And so definitely look out for that. And I think the OSL will be releasing a 1.12 release soon that will include some of that. I thought I would just pitch in, one of the other things, one of the earlier projects that got included was OpenQ. That is actually rendering frames, and here's a quick stats from ImageWorks has fully switched OpenQ at this point, and they were able to render 123 million frames last year, and so that's pretty great for that project, and so if anybody has interest, we can talk about that later. Right, so moving on to talking about sort of open communication and de facto standards, we've added a number of projects in the past little while, and I'll talk about two: OpenFX and OpenAsset.io, and then a brief moment about OpenTimeline.io. So OpenFX is actually a very old API. It was created something about 20 years ago, but we've included it into the Academy Software Foundation, and they are looking to modernize and update to a new version 1.5. And so this is an API that helps you make standard or it defines a standard plugin interface for image processing routines. Although you can use it for other things as well. OpenAsset.io is a project that is just it was just accepted within the Academy Software Foundation a month ago or so. And it's actually accepted into a project, into a phase that we call the sandbox stage. And sandbox is for projects that they aren't quite established yet. Although this one I think is established enough, but it allows the project to grow and gain lots of mentorship and help and these sorts of things of how to grow into a full open source project. And so we're excited to have OpenAsset.io come in and be sort of one of these early sandbox projects where we can really help it define a good interoperability standard for asset management system, and thank the Foundry for proposing that and moving forward with that. I think it'll be great. So OpenTimeline.io, oh, there's a picture missing. So the OpenTimeline.io is a project that if you haven't seen it, is really one that enables interchange in a way more than it's not just a file format. It has tons of adapters to be able to read various different edit formats and all of this sorts of things. And one of the things that they're working on right now is to continue to add a deep integration into various applications, especially the editorial based applications. But really you should see this appearing all over. And so I'm sorry there's a picture missing, but trust me, it should be there. So continuing right along, I thought that we should sort of talk a little bit through some sort of future looking things for a moment, and two of those are the following. One of this is DPEL, which is the Digital Production Example Library, and this is something that it isn't designed to be necessarily. It's not a software project. Except that we believe that it will enable all of the software projects to have really great test data and production grade test data. And so this is super exciting for us. And so there's a few pieces of test material that are already part of DPEL. The first is the second version of STEM from the ASC, which is an 18-minute movie, and it's available in all manner of formats, HDR and EXR and all of that. Second is a character with full rigging donated by AWS for their NOAA character, which should be great for experimentation. The Intel has donated a volumetric cloud library, which will be good for testing scalability of any sort of PDB type things. And then finally, Animal Logic has done A-Lab phase 2, and so this is sort of meant to be a production scale set of things that you can use to test USD and test renders and stuff like that. And so we're super excited that this is a project, and hope that it will really help people. It will help us, send bug reports to third-party vendors, as well as recreate test scenarios in-house as well. And so these materials are available under a custom license that enables people to use it for test and demonstration, but not for production use, obviously. And so it should be really exciting to see what else gets added to here. One of the other projects that we've also just accepted is the Open Review Initiative. This actually was, this grew out of the Review and Approval Working Group, if anybody has been part of that. And there are two tracks for this. One is talking about standards and metadata and interop, and how to better capture, how to encode video, or how to exchange annotations, these sorts of problems. And the other one is having a consistent player. Everybody needs a player. It's not a secret sauce kind of thing. And so there's an umbrella TSC, or Technical Steering Committee, created that is actually going to, and the first 3 projects, Autodesk has kindly is going to be kindly open sourcing RV. DNEG has XStudio, and portions of Sony ItView will also be contributed to this over time. And so what they're looking to do is create sort of a baseline player that everybody has access to. And the little dinosaur dude over here is actually a Q&A for the project, if you do the QR code with that, if you have any more interest in that. And so, this has been super quick, but hopefully it'll give you an idea that we're trying to cover over a whole bunch of different things, and sort of address software needs through a different scenarios, if you will, or different axes, and really trying to make sure that open source continues to be a vibrant part of our community. But with that, our community is stronger with you involved, and I can't emphasize this enough. This is not a recruiting page. Obviously, we're not hiring, but we would love if anybody isn't involved already, if you would like to get involved. We welcome any and all to contribute. And what are ways that you can contribute to the Academy Software Foundation? You can open up one of the pages and submit a pull request with your favorite feature that you wanted to add, you always wanted to see, or a bug fix, or you can look at the issue pages on GitHub and pick one for a particular project, or you could contribute a new plugin, or even if you're not a software engineer, if you just want to help with the documentation, that's always helpful, or test cases, or and even if you just want to come along to the discussions. Our TSC meetings are all open meetings. and we welcome anybody who wants to come by and ask for features or talk through things that they don't know how they do. You know, if you want to get involved with any of our working groups or anything like that, more than welcome. Any DevOps or CI expertise, super handy. One of the things that we are looking for is more expertise in security concerns. We have a number of things that we do to, now that some of these projects are appearing in operating systems, we have to make sure that our software is extra secure. And so anybody with experience there would be welcome with open arms. And you can of course join the discussion, and here's the various links and whatnot to do that. One of the things I didn't mention is we have a little I don't know, podcast video casting called Behind the Screens, where we highlight various people who have been involved in the project. But there's those search things, and with that, I think I will end and ask if there are any questions.
Yes, we have one so far, which is how can one get involved with improving project documentation?
I would say that the best way to do that is to actually pick a project and then join the TSC meetings. I don't know how if you go to aswf.io, there's a meeting-calendar URL underneath there, or you can just select it from the menu, and that has the meetings. If you show up to the steering committee meeting for the project that you'd like to help the documentation for, people would be super appreciative. And I think it's as simple as that. And then it would be you know, working on the text and then submitting a pull request to improve the documentation. I think most of the projects are using Read the Docs now.
And if you're not able to join a steering committee meeting, you know, all of the projects have their own Slack channels on the Academy Software Foundation Slack or the group's mailing lists. If you just reach out and say, hey, I'm interested in helping, they're very welcoming. Everybody wants the help. And so I'm sure they'll then be able to give you the guidance for next steps. So next question is, does ASWF have a unified CLA for all projects, or do contribution rules vary from project to project?
That's a complicated answer, or it's a complicated. We should all have the same CLA system. Every project should be using a system called Easy CLA, which is provided to us as part of the Linux Foundation provides that for us. And so the CLA will actually be the same. However, each project is technically a separate entity. And so for each project, you do have to get that CLA signed sort of for each project, if you will. So if you wanted to contribute to 10 things, you'd have to go through and do just click through on the Easy CLA on 10 different things.
What about people who might be interested in getting involved in projects apart from documentation? Like what are kind of some of the other, you know, areas that projects are looking for help?
Well, I guess it would depend on the project, of course, but people are always looking for help on new features or on helping with bug fixes or you know, just general involvement. You know, one of the things that it's you know, we would love to increase the number of people we have contributing to projects, because that means that, you know, if I decide to retire tomorrow and go live on a you know, in a cave in some remote location, someone can pick up a project that I work on, and there won't be as big an impact to one person leaving a project. And so I think that, you know, there's the easiest way is to just ask, either on, as Emily pointed out, on Slack or on at the steering committee meetings or anything like that. Just stop by and say, hey, what would the project benefit most from right now, and then go from there. I don't think there's any prescribed method, and maybe we should. I know that there's been the diversity inclusion group working group has been working on sort of like how to encourage people to contribute, but I don't know that we have any published documentation on that yet.
Can you talk a little bit more about the diversity and inclusion working group?
Oh, can I? Yes, of course. So the diversity inclusion, so one of the things that we have made very explicit is that we need to work on these sorts of things, and you have to be explicit about these problems. And so the working group has been running pretty much, Emily, remind me if I'm wrong, but pretty much since day one.
We launched a couple of years ago.
Yeah. But the working group does a couple of things. One, they help coordinate and run a number of really great programs so far. We have a summer learning program that we ran, and or Google Summer of Code, and then there's been sort of a learning series. There's a bunch of YouTube videos from that if you go and search for Academy Software Foundation on YouTube, it should be available there. And that was all sort of grew out of the working group. And but at the same time, they're also helping our own organization work on diversity and inclusion, including most recently, we've deployed into the governing board a whole system of alternates, such that it's not just the same people who always show up to the same meetings. It's now a much more diverse group, and so Emily, I don't know if you have any other thoughts, but
yeah, and I'll just say, the diversity and inclusion working group, we meet once a month, and it's a huge mix of people from across the industry. We also have a lot of universities that join, really trying to look at also how do we get the next generation of software engineers and developers involved in the projects, involved in open source, and even just interested in the industry, because a lot of times, software engineers, because they don't even know that there's these opportunities in motion picture. So, a lot of like the summer learning program is like with university students, and we, through the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, provide mentors. So it's kind of a mentorship program, but we're always, looking for, input from other people and help and advice. I mean, it's definitely a big community effort, because this is a project across, it's an issue across all projects, as to how do we diversify and grow the community, not just in terms of, contributors, but also in terms of the diversity of the contributors. Awesome. So Kimball, what do you think we'll see, maybe in the next 6 months to a year coming out of the foundation or any of the projects? Are there any new updates?
That's an interesting question. I mean, obviously, as I sort of mentioned, there'll be a number of new releases sort of rolling out for the next VFX reference platform year. We've just sort of brought on board a number of new projects and fairly big projects, and so those I think will clarify. And the things like the Open Review Initiative are super interesting to me, because they also and I don't mean to, I'm not belittling any of the projects in any way, but they are, in many cases, the existing projects are kind of libraries, right? But the Open Review Initiative is really about creating tools at this point. And we have another project, which I didn't mention, which is Raw to Aces. Is sort of one of these things. It's also going to be a tool. It's a relatively small use case, but is a and this is sort of an interesting thing to us, I think, where we're starting to introduce things that, they don't conflict with any of the Foundry or Autodesk or side effects. They aren't conflicting with any of the tools that those companies provide, but they are tools that are useful and help fill in the pipeline. And so I think that's it's, to me, it's super exciting to see these sorts of things come online, and it will I think really help move things forward. I guess, some of the other, there's the Rust working group that's working on, they've got some projects too, and I didn't talk about them at all, but they have some bindings to, or sorry, a tool that makes that takes the C++ and makes Rust bindings from that for things like OpenEXR, and that stuff should start getting released. And so that's from a future programmer thing. If Rust is your new hotness, then those sorts of things are pretty exciting too, in terms of making sure we stay relevant and new in the programming environment.
So if you have a project that you want to contribute to the foundation, what's the process for that? What's the process for bringing on new projects?
So if you go to the TAC GitHub site, or sorry, project, it's just Academy Software, GitHub, Academy Software Foundation /TAC. In there's a project proposal README file, and there's a it's more like a questionnaire than anything, but basically you write up that document, and and then effectively you mail it into the TAC, the advisory committee, and then what we'll do is we'll have you come by and present that, and then sort of talk through that project and discuss, how it helps. Our mission is to help software for the motion picture industry. So we probably won't accept any and every project if we don't think it'll help sort of the media and entertainment space. But we'll certainly be more than willing to listen and give feedback and help projects grow. We have a number of projects who aren't yet in the Academy Software Foundation, and those we help and encourage and support every day as well.
Great. Well, I think that is it for now. So thank you, Kimball. And a reminder to visit our site or join our Slack channel. We did post a link to join in the chat on Whova. All of our projects are on there, very active community, so they're there to answer any questions you might have. So just a reminder, you can visit GatherTown to socialize before the next session. But thank you again to everybody who joined.
Thank you all.